The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you dedicated enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings, everybody. I am Admiral Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for stardate negative 268847.1. Today, we're going to be talking about public service. Public service is a sort of a general concept, but also how we recognize it and incorporate it and support it here aboard the USS Dauntless. Now, why do we care about public service? Um, let's go straight to the the relevant page on our mission. Right. So we covered the mission in a lot of detail. One of our very first episodes. Essentially, our mission is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of mankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. Now, that one sentence packs a lot of meaning into it, which is why we have to expand and explain in a lot of detail down here. Now, I want to once again, for those who haven't seen all of our previous episodes, the the difference between the mission or our mission and our individual missions. Individual missions are the things that we do day to day, where we go and do stuff. We go out and watch a movie or do a park run or donate blood or anything like that. Each one of those things is considered a mission, but all of those things are part of the mission, our core mission, which is the thing that the Dauntless does overall, the reason why the Dauntless exists. And by way of clarification, we've broken down our overall mission into a number of standing orders, which are of various importances. One of the most important ones, however, relates to what we're talking about today, and that is standing order number 2, which is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. And specifically, the first clarification bullet point under there, help people who need help. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about public service. Public service is a practice that we all are encouraged to embark upon, either through our Starfleet service, so either as part of our day-to-day operations aboard the Dauntless, or as part of something else. Oh, I just realized I'm wearing my headset, and I actually don't need to be wearing it, so I'm taking that off. That was silly. There we go. That's much better. I'm so used to the old days where my headset was the audio setup that I just forgot that it was still on. That's much better. Now I can hear what's going on around me. All right, before we get into too much detail, I just want to greet everybody that's here. We've got Captain Van Groenen. Good to see you there. You need to figure out how to get the undershirt collar like that. Yes, okay, so you'll notice that I'm not wearing my normal SDU today. If you go back and watch the briefing video about uniforms, we talked about how in the last few days of every month, from the 25th until the end of the month, it is acceptable to substitute your normal uniform with what we call alternative uniforms. So that's any uniform that is correct and accurate with the correct rank and branch of service color from any of the canon uniform sets in Star Trek. So that's what I've done. I'm wearing, this is the Discovery Season 2 version of the SDU, and I am wearing that accordingly. So that's what's happening because today is, of course, the 25th of the month, and Captain Van Groenen is pleased about this uniform collar. So I didn't construct this uniform myself. I purchased this off the rack from a supplier called Mart. If you're planning on purchasing any Mart products, you should probably do that soon. I understand that they are in conversation with Paramount about potential, what's the word, copyright issues. So if you'd like to purchase one of these, you should do that today. If you are a member of Starfleet International, you can get a discount using a discount code. If you log into the Starfleet database, you can obtain the relevant code and make your purchase, which will be good for you. I also want to greet who else is here. We've got Master Chief Kotze, we've got Colonel Hubert, good to see you. We've got Chief Newton, who sorted out his audio from last week. Glad to hear it. Colonel Hubert, are you not hearing my sound? It looks like it's working on my end. Is it not working on your end? Okay. The headset mic is enabled. Oh, okay. All right. Let me see if I can sort out the microphone audio. That should be going through there. Okay. That looks good. For the recording and the stream, however, it was going through the correct microphone. So sorry, peeps, on Discord, it was only you that were getting the sub-quality audio, but that should now be fixed. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. All right. We also have the emergency medical hologram is sticking his nose into the chat here in Discord. We are in the process of training our new emergency medical hologram, and he is, let's just say he's not as sophisticated as Voyager's EMH, but it's early days. Let's hope. We never know when that might resolve itself. Okay, excellent. Who else have I missed? We've got Lieutenant Kalitz is in here as well, and I think that's everybody who's in here at the moment. All right, so let's get on with the briefing. So we were talking about standing order number 2 and specifically public service and how that relates to what we do here aboard the Dauntless. So here in our Dauntless main computer, this is an internal web page that is only available to members of the crew. Active duty crew members can view this, but it's fine. There's no private information here, so we're just going to go through this as is, and we'll just go through it as it's presented. So we draw inspiration from the line in the Star Trek episode City on the Edge of Forever, which is it was an original series episode. It was the one where we were introduced to the Guardian of the Edge of Forever. Kirk and Spock and McCoy are accidentally transported back in time to the early 20th century, where they meet a philanthropist named, what was her name again? No, I've forgotten her name. There she is. That's her. She's the one. Edith Keeler. That's her name. They meet Edith Keeler, and it turns out that she is a great and inspiring person. But if she lives, then Hitler wins World War II, and the whole of history is changed. So she has to die, which leaves the crew with a moral dilemma. But Kirk and Keeler form a bond over the fact that she is such an effective philanthropist, and that relates to this conversation here. So in which Kirk gives her a piece of information about the future. He says, "Let me help. 100 years or so from now, I believe, a famous novelist will write a classic using that theme. He'll recommend those 3 words even over 'I love you.'" And this is kind of the philosophical underpinning of our philosophy behind standing order number 2. In the present day, we kind of think of the guiding principle by which we interact with the world is something like, what's in it for me, right? What do I get out of this? That's not everything all the time, everybody to the same extent, but our economic system and our system of interacting with other people is kind of centered around that principle of what's in it for me. Whereas let me help is a more kind of, it's still in the same scale, but it's a somewhat more enlightened version of that, where there's an assumption of reciprocity, where if I can provide help to you, then that makes life better for everybody. And then maybe someday, if I need help, you can provide it back to me. It's reciprocal altruism is the name for that philosophy. So let me help, let me do what I can to help you, and that makes it better for all of us, so that you are perhaps someday in a position to help me if I need it. Let me help is the guiding principle behind all of that. So crew members are encouraged to help people, both as part of your Starfleet members, as your Starfleet service, and outside of it. We also endeavor to recognize the contributions our crew have made. So there is recognition that specifically relates to the public service thing. I'll go into more detail about exactly what public service is, but let's first cover the recognition, because for whatever reason, when I was constructing this page, that's the sequence I put it in. So there are 3 levels at which these contributions may be recognized. The first is at the chapter level. So you may remember from the video we did a while back, the briefing video about rank promotions, that there was a line in the rank promotion criteria for almost all of the ranks. So remember, you've got your mandatory requirements. These are the things you have to complete in order to be promoted to your next rank. And then you have your elective requirements. So for each rank, you have a number of these that you have to meet. And there's a long list of requirements that you can choose from in order to qualify for your next rank promotion. So the bottom item on most of those lists is this one: commendation, which is given at the sole discretion of the commanding officer in recognition of meritorious service or conduct. I'm not going to dictate an amount of public service hours that somebody needs to put in order to qualify for accommodation. But if I feel like somebody has done a significant amount of work in their public service sphere, they've put in some decent volunteer hours, or they've had a significant effect, then I will attach a commendation to their record, which will then count towards their next rank promotion. So at chapter level, that's where that kind of thing works. We also have a chapter award, which is granted to members who have put in a significant amount of volunteer time during the course of a year. At the end of the year, that award might be granted to a member who's done some public service work. So that's what it looks like at the chapter level. We also have at the region level, we have the Region 8 awards, which include several citations that could be granted for various forms of public service. So if you've been to the Region 8, for those who might not have seen the video about what Region 8 is, Starfleet International is our international parent organization. That USS Dauntless is a chapter of Starfleet International, but because it's a global organization, the world has been divided up into 20 geographic regions according to Starfleet. Each region has a level of autonomy with its own organizational structure within it. Here, the Dauntless, which is based in Cape Town, South Africa, is situated in Region 8, Region 8 being Africa and the Middle East, which is geographically the largest region, but in terms of membership, one of the smaller regions. So within Region 8, we have our own annual awards, and that looks something like this. There is the Starfleet Region 8 Awards Program. This manual is obtainable from the Region 8 website if you'd like to take a look through it, and it explains the cycles by which all of the awards are given. And these awards are presented in the form of medals that can be worn on your uniform. I generally elect not to wear them in my uniforms, but that's at the user's choice if you wish. And there are a couple of these awards that are aimed towards recognizing volunteer service. So the most obvious one, of course, is the Volunteer Service Award, which is awarded once every 2 years. This award is issued in recognition of sustained service to one's community. The member must have performed at least 100 hours of service to a non-Starfleet charitable organization in the past 2 years. Monetary contributions cannot be counted in place of service. The award may be enhanced, so that is with a silver border, followed by gold border and standard progression in increments of 100 hours. If it is renewed in subsequent cycles, the enhancements continue cumulatively. So that is one of the ways that Region 8 is able to demonstrate that you've received the same award multiple times, is that it gets a gold border and stripes through it and that kind of thing. It gets decorated, so it's quite obvious, but the basic panel continues to look like that. So here the wording is interesting. So the member must have performed at least 100 hours of service to a non-Starfleet charitable organization in the past 2 years. So that is setting a hard number on how much charity work you need to have done. That's volunteer work. And monetary contributions cannot be counted in place of public service. Here on the Dauntless, we haven't explicitly placed that limitation on our recognition. So the commendation towards rank promotion doesn't specifically exclude monetary contributions, but here at the regional level it does. So you can't just make a donation to a charity of your choice. You actually have to roll up your sleeves, get down and do some work, and it needs to be quite a lot of work. 100 hours of service within the last 2 years is a non-trivial amount of time, so you really need to be putting some effort in order to earn this award. And then if you've done 200 hours or 300 hours or so on, then the award is then elevated to higher and higher levels and made to look even fancier. I wonder if there's a graphic. Oh, here we go. So here you can see what the citations look like. So once it's awarded once, it's just the panel. Second time, it gets the gray border. Third time, gold border, stripes through the middle, all the way up to the Roman numeral 8 in the middle, which is the highest possible version of that. So that's the one award that is relevant for volunteer service, but there are others as well that could also, depending on what kind of service you're talking about, could also be relevant. So let's see, there was another one here that was also potentially correct. Faithful Service, no. Cretek Alliance Award, no. The Teach Award, not so much. For promoting space exploration. So if you are volunteering with an organization that promotes space exploration, then that could potentially count towards both of these awards with the same amount of time, making a significant contribution. I would say that performing at least 100 hours of service towards an institution that does space education, I think that would count as significant in both arenas. The Montgomery Scott Award for Education, if you've also studied through the appropriate organization, or you've had to do some practical work which involves volunteering, then that could count there as well, and so on. You get the idea. So there are multiple ways that you can be recognized for doing certain kinds of volunteer work at the regional level. And I would recommend that everybody take a look through this manual and see if there are any criteria here that perhaps you have earned over the last couple of years, or perhaps some of your crewmates have earned over the last couple of years. Remember, of course, that in Starfleet, nominating yourself for an award is seen as a little inappropriate. So maybe think about what you've seen in the various crew reports that the command staff put out every month, and see if there's anybody that you know of in the crew around you who might have earned the right to be granted one of these awards, and you can nominate them on their behalf. So at the Starfleet level, the Starfleet Orders of Merit include several citations that could be granted for various forms of public service. So the Starfleet Orders of Merit look not unlike the Region 8 awards. I mean, not in terms of physical representations. As of now, there are no physical representations for the Starfleet Orders of Merit, although that is an ongoing discussion about whether or not we should have physical medals that correspond with these. But in terms of the criteria, they're not dissimilar. They're not identical. So just because you qualify for a regional award doesn't mean you necessarily automatically qualified for a Starfleet award or vice versa, but they deal with some similar issues. So let's see, one of these was the Order of Samaritan. So this relates to volunteerism, awarded to a member for significant activities in the area of charity work or volunteerism. Activities need not be Starfleet related. So this is less explicit. I don't think this explicitly excludes financial recognition, although I suspect that probably is included generally for all recognition in Starfleet, that financial contributions don't really count. So this is for volunteerism, but there are also other ways here. Again, we've got the space research or exploration. We've got accessibility awarded for member for significant activities and making chapter regional Starfleet events resources available to disabled members. Depending on what institution you're doing that through, that could also count as extra volunteering, and so on. There are lots of options that you could, depending on how you choose to do your volunteer service, you could earn recognition at both the regional and Starfleet level. Where were we? All right. So to ensure that you receive the recognition you deserve, we need to know about the work you've done. Please be sure to include your public service hours in your monthly report to your department head. So remember, we spoke about this in a video about reports not that long ago. Each member of the crew is expected to submit a monthly report to his or her department head, and in that report you are encouraged to include the number of volunteer hours that you have served during that month. That then goes into the crew evaluation spreadsheet, so we can keep track of who has done how many hours for the month, and then the command staff during the course of the year, or only at the end of the year, however it works out, will then not only grant the relevant recognition within the context of the Dauntless, but we will also nominate people for awards outside of Starfleet. But again, if you feel like a member of your team is deserving of recognition or has earned one of these awards, there's nothing stopping you from putting forward that nomination. If you go to sfi.org, go to the Members Hub, you can find out how to nominate people for those awards. There's any active duty member or any active member of Starfleet in good standing can nominate any other member for one of those awards. The type of service we're interested in is hours served, not donations given. But if you decided to make a donation in lieu of doing some volunteer work, please be sure to mention that your donation will be considered accordingly. So we're not as strict as the regional level requirement, which specifically excludes monetary contributions from consideration. Here we do take those into account, but we prefer to see hours served as opposed to money given. Money given is not worthless, but hours served is really what we're most interested in. Now here we get to what counts as public service. So this is really the definition that we're looking at if you're interested in working for, doing some volunteer work for an organization. What is that? So this can be complicated. There are many activities that qualify and many that might feel like they should qualify but don't. So here's a rough definition of what would qualify. Firstly, it needs to be of benefit. The activity must do positive things. If there are negative side effects or consequences, these must be outweighed by its positive work. So this is a little bit tricky. Sometimes volunteer work that you do might be controversial, right? So some of the work you do is bad, but overall the effect is good. I'm going to use an example from my own life. So I do volunteer work at Cheetah Outreach. Cheetah Outreach is this institution here. So Cheetah Outreach is a conservation ecotourism facility here in Cape Town, South Africa, where we educate mostly international tourists, but also some locals about the plight of the cheetah, the situation the cheetah face in the wild, plummeting population. And also we have a sister organization, the Cheetah Outreach Trust, that has conservation deliverables where we place livestock guardian dogs on farms to repel cheetahs and other predators so that farmers don't have to kill those predators. So the predators are able to move freely through farmland, but the livestock is safe. So the farmers are happy and the predators are happy, especially the cheetahs, but other predators too. And everybody gets to live in harmony together. But here at the local facility here in Cape Town in Somerset West, we have a small population of ambassador animals, including cheetah. So these are cheetah that have been bred in captivity and they have spent their whole lives in a captive environment and they meet the public. You can, as a member of the public, come to Cheetah Outreach here in Somerset West and you can pay a small fee and you can come and meet one of our cheetahs. You can give him a stroke and have your photo taken with him. It's a very pleasurable experience. I would recommend it. But this practice can be controversial. Not everybody agrees with the fact that we do a touch program. And in fact, I think it's safe to say that most of us, even at Cheetah Outreach, would prefer that we didn't need to do an outreach program, at least a physical touch program. But we understand, and this is a point that was made by Captain Picard in Star Trek First Contact, that touch connects you to a thing in a very intimate and personal way. It's one thing to look at a photo or a video of a cheetah on the internet or in a book, or even driving past a cheetah in a game reserve and seeing it off in the distance, which is a great thing to do. But actually getting to touch a real live cheetah, a real animal, brings it home in a kind of immersive sensory experience that really connects you to that animal in a very personal and intense way that can't be replicated in any other way. So what we're able to do at Cheetah Outreach is we're able to create a safe and healthy environment for some of these ambassador animals to live, where they can meet people in a way that is safe for everybody, it's comfortable for everybody. We have very strict ethical standards and very strict safety protocols so that everybody's comfortable, including the cheetah, in fact, especially the cheetah. The cheetah is the one that is in complete control during the entire interaction. Now, although we would wish that it wasn't necessary to do a touch program, so those cheetahs would just be able to live their wild lives out in the wild, or perhaps living in a no-touch environment like some facilities operate, the utility and the practicality of having that touch program, just the value of it from an educational point of view, is undeniable. And because cheetahs are in so much danger, we feel like the risk outweighs the the risk is outweighed by the benefit. So there is an arguable downside to doing the work that we do at Cheetah Outreach, but we believe, and I can make a pretty good argument for why the good of the practice is outweighs the negative. So that's what we're talking about here. So the work is of benefit to cheetahs in general, even though there are arguable downsides to the practice. Good to see you there, Colonel Hubert. Thanks for joining us. I understand you need to jump off. Hopefully we'll catch you later. You can always watch this video online later if you need to. All right, so the second criteria is it needs to benefit the public. So this doesn't have to mean all of the public. It could mean everyone within a specific geographic area or everyone with a specific characteristic, such as people with cancer or who work in teaching. It can also refer to causes that affect members of non-human species, again, like cheetahs. This is a bit tricky, and we'll get into how this interplays with what doesn't count in a moment. So we want to make sure that people are not being excluded based on various criteria. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me not get into it. So in other words, it needs to benefit an entire category of people who are, or beings who are not necessarily people, who are subject to a particular negative consequence, and the mitigation strategy needs to be to try and help those people as much as you can. If you're uncertain about whether your activities would qualify as the kind of public service we're talking about, check first with your direct superior or the commanding officer. There's also a list of pre-screened organizations and programs below. So we'll go look at that organization in a moment. So what doesn't count as public service? So this is a little tricky, and all of this stuff is up for debate. So if you feel like the work that you're doing should be counted, even if it's well, okay, it can all be negotiated and all be debated. None of this stuff is cast in stone. So please feel free to engage with me or any of the other senior staff about these topics if you have questions or concerns about any of it. So, as the Dauntless, we prefer to distance ourselves from programs that have a religious or political message behind their work. Non-partisan status is quite important to us. We want to make sure that we're not being identified with any particular political organization or any particular religious ideology. We want to be separate from all of those things. While it's perfectly acceptable to work in collaboration with political or religious groups in doing public service, we'll only consider work that steers clear of the following. So it's not unlikely that a particular political party might get involved with a charity program or charity organization, and that's fine if we're going to collaborate with them in that way, or perhaps your local church is doing something and you want to help out with the thing that they're doing. But there needs to be a separation between the charity work and the ideological work, and this is what we're going to try and articulate here. So this is a very complicated topic, and I've done my best to try and explain our position on this, but it's understandable if it perhaps might be a little bit opaque. So firstly, religious or political discrimination, programs that exclude beneficiaries on religious or political grounds, such as programs that exclude recipients who do or do not subscribe to a particular religion or political movement, or who do not consent to religious or political message before receiving aid. So there are some religious organizations, for example, that perhaps will run a soup kitchen, but they have a policy where they will not serve soup to people who do not ascribe to their religion. Now, that is their right to do that. That's, of course, up to them. If they can provide that aid to anybody they choose to. But we, as the Dauntless, can't be making those kinds of discriminations between the people who receive our aid. The people who don't belong to that religion need that aid just as much as the people who do, and separating them on that grounds is not fair. Again, as an individual, as a person, you are welcome to participate in that kind of a program, but we can't be seen to associate that with the Dauntless. There's another practice that happens sometimes. Again, religious institutions will require that recipients of their aid need to sit through a religious service before they will be allowed to receive food or a bed to sleep in or something like that. Again, you are welcome to participate in that as an individual, as a citizen, as a person, but as the Dauntless, we can't be endorsing that kind of activity. The other one is that programs that exclude recipients based on immutable characteristics such as race or sex or gender identity, sexual orientation, age, national origin, disability, or familial status. So an example of this might be a homeless shelter that only caters to men. That's not fair. That's discrimination on the basis of immutable characteristics. If you are not a man, you may not receive aid from that homeless shelter. That's not okay. Why would that be the case? People who are not men also need that kind of aid, so discriminating on that basis is unfair. Unless they can make a case, like a strong practical case for why that might need to be the case. Perhaps the homeless shelter provides specialized medical care that only men can benefit from for some biological reason or something like that. It's arguable, but generally speaking, unless you have a good practical reason uh, for excluding certain people based on immutable characteristics, we as the Dauntless can't be seen to associate with that kind of a program. Again, you as a member are free to participate in these programs if you feel so moved, but the Dauntless can't recognize that kind of a work. The next category is indoctrination. So this is education campaigns with a clear ideological message, such as programs intended to exert influence over recipients' religious or political beliefs. So any kind of propaganda campaign or lectures with a particular political bent or religious bent, we can't be supporting that. Again, you are welcome to volunteer at those kinds of events if you like, but we can't count that towards your volunteer hours for recognition aboard the Dauntless. Programs intended to address a cause the existence of which is debatable and is typically only advanced by members of a particular ideological affiliation. An extreme example of this might be a doomsday cult. So a group of people have decided that it's the end of the world next month, and you as an individual might be persuaded by their arguments, and you might participate in one of their events to try and educate the public about this impending doomsday that you see coming. but not everybody agrees that there is actually a doomsday coming. It's just the religious belief of this one particular sect. We can't endorse that kind of volunteer work. You're welcome to participate in that if you feel so moved, but as the Dauntless, we can't endorse that. That's not something we can get behind. Captain Frankrina says, blame the Dyson spheres. Yes, the Dyson spheres, they are to blame. The next category is protest movements. So this is activism that goes beyond education as intended to sway public opinion against a current or imminent situation, such as public protest action, including picketing, marches, demonstrations, and riots, or online activism, including pamphleteering, petitioning, and hashtag campaigns. Again, as an individual, you are welcome to participate in any of these things. We don't ask our members to refrain from any of this kind of activity. If your conscience has led you to participate in a campaign like this, by all means do so. We just ask that you don't attend in your Dauntless uniform, your Starfleet uniform, and which would then link your activities there to your activities aboard the Dauntless. And we would not accept you registering the hours you spent engaging in that campaign as volunteer work. That's just not something that we can endorse. Master Chief Kotza says, unless the petition impacts Star Trek episodes or series, no. As the Dauntless, we can't be seen to engage in petitions that would influence the outcome of that kind of thing. The reason for that is because Paramount, which is the company that organizes or that owns the Star Trek property, has a contentious relationship with any organization that engages with their property. For agree with it or disagree with it, we can't be seen to be publicly criticizing Paramount's decisions. As individual members, as individual Star Trek fans, we are welcome to participate in any of these petition campaigns to try and get Lower Decks reinstated for a sixth season. But as the Dauntless, we cannot endorse such a campaign. Unfortunately, we can't. So even that kind of an ideology, although it would seem obvious and would seem like synergy with our brand and with our mission, because we want to ensure our continued existence, we simply can't cross swords with Paramount. They are not our enemy, and we can't be seen to be making them our enemy in public, unfortunately. To be clear, we don't wish to discourage any kind of volunteer work you may be interested in doing. If your conscience moves you to engage with any program that you feel makes the world a better place, you should absolutely do so. That said, the Dauntless can't be seen to endorse activities that could be interpreted as partisan or controversial. We can't reward that kind of activity, but we wish you well in your efforts. Again, if you feel like it's to the benefit of society to engage in an activity like that, then you should absolutely do that. But unfortunately, we can't award you hours or recognition or commendations for doing that kind of work. But we have done some of the work ahead of time. So some people have already logged their volunteer hours against certain projects or programs or organizations. And so the command staff have already done the work of screening those organizations and already pre-approving that it's acceptable to to work with those institutions. So here are some of these. We've got Cancer, the Cancer Association of South Africa. It looks like this. This is a fairly well-known organization. They are interested in promoting awareness raising, fundraising, and support of cancer patients, research against cancer. They are a pretty solid sort of central hub for cancer-related volunteerism, support, fundraising, any of that kind of thing. So if you are spending some time working with cancer with one or more of their programs, that is definitely something you can allocate your hours to. Another one is, of course, Cheetah Outreach, which I talked about a moment ago. Cheetah Outreach has a volunteer program, and anybody is welcome to come and volunteer your time at Cheetah Outreach. All you need to do is be at least 18 years old to speak English and be reasonably physically capable. And in fact, several members of our crew are already here listed on the team. Here you can see that's me. There's Corporal Duplessis, and we've had several other members of the crew volunteer for short distance at Cheetah Outreach in the past. So Cheetah Outreach is a great program, and I would welcome anybody to come and visit us. To our overseas listeners, the Cheetah Outreach has an international volunteer program where we have local accommodation. You can come and stay in our house and work at Cheetah Outreach full time for a period. I think the minimum period is about 3 months. Maximum, I don't think there is a maximum. So if you'd like to come and spend some time with cheetahs and other interesting animals, I would welcome you to do that. Enough of the plug with cheetah outreach. Scouts South Africa, so that used to be called the Boy Scouts of South Africa. It's now just called now just called Scouts South Africa. Volunteering through them is also worth doing so. Now, before I continue, I know that the Boy Scouts internationally have had some associations with various religious organizations, and there are some controversies about it, especially in the United States. It is, as far as I know, a separate organization, but they share a common ancestry, and they are perhaps still affiliated with one another. That said, just because there are religious people within the organization, and even that the organization may have a religious leadership, the work that they do is undeniably not religious. They don't proselytize. That's not what the Scouts does. They don't require a religious test of the people that they're doing the work for. So Scouts are a great example of that, and so are the Girl Guides, which is a similar organization here in South Africa. You can become a volunteer and help to mentor young girls as they progress through the world. Parkrun is, of course, where our team does our 5K runs every Saturday morning. Parkrun is an international organization promoting health and fitness. There's not much volunteering time that you can do that. You can do a maximum of 2 hours a week, which would take a long time to add up to 100 hours. But I suppose if you were volunteering 2 hours every Saturday for an entire year, you would not only earn a milestone T-shirt from Parkrun, a nice red, fancy red volunteering milestone T-shirt, but you would also have logged your 100 volunteer hours, which is what would qualify you for that award. So Parkrun, even though it's not feeding the homeless or curing the sick, it is promoting a healthy lifestyle, and therefore is perfectly acceptable as a place where you can do your public service. Santa Shoebox is a program that we have supported once or twice before. So this is a program where for Christmas time, people are encouraged to assemble these shoebox-sized gift parcels to be sent to needy children. And this is the sort of the logistical backbone of that organization. So the time that you spent working for the Santa Shoebox project can be logged towards your program. So that is if you are volunteering your time. If you are making a shoebox, or you're making a financial donation, you should still record that in your crew report at the end of the month, but it's not going to work. It's not going to count as much as actually spending time working for the project. The South African National Blood Services. So this is if you are participating in our Priority 1 blood donation missions every 2 months, every 9 weeks. The time that you spend actually going to the blood services facility and either donating blood yourself or supporting other blood donors can be logged as public service hours. You're probably spending less than an hour in the actual facility, and that is the hour that you will be claiming as that public service, because you are doing the work for SANBS, or if you are in the Western Cape, you're doing it for the WCBS. So if you're one of our other away teams, then you could be supporting one of the institutions over there. Just need to get us those details so we can add them to the pre-screened list. So if you are a member of the Dauntless and you're doing regular volunteer work for an organization that isn't already listed on the pre-screened programs list, you can provide the details of that organization to me directly or to the executive officer so that we can screen that organization, ensure that they meet the appropriate criteria, and then we can add them to the list, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. And any other members of the crew who wish to support those organizations can simply log their hours, and we don't need to worry about that again. All right, so that is what we need to know about public service, the public service program on the Dauntless. Let's see if we have any questions here. It's been to a few good scout things. That was not something I had encountered, at least in South Africa. That was Captain Frank Korean. And yeah, so obviously Scouts is not the international organization it once was. I believe it's much more fragmented, one country to another, although they still have a similar origin and a sort of a shared goal. Institutionally, different countries' versions of the Scouts can be quite different from one another. It's been a long time since I was personally involved with the Scouts, so don't take my word for any of this stuff, but this is what I've come to understand to be true. But yes, the Scouts is a worthwhile organization that could be supported if you felt so inclined. So yes, public service is something that every member of the crew should be undertaking. It is part of our adherence to Standing Order number 2. There are many options for how you can choose to participate in public service. there's nothing preventing you from making your public service opportunities an away mission so that it can count for that as well. If you feel like involving your fellow crewmates, that can be done. But there's no need for that to be done necessarily. You're welcome to engage in your public service in your own time and then log that as part of your crew report. And also, please remember to keep an eye on the reports submitted by other people, especially the crew evaluations report I drop in the Bridge channel at the end of the month, and see if uh, anyone in your crew might be deserving of one of those awards so that you can nominate them. Because although it is the senior staff's job generally to nominate people for awards, it would be nice if other people could step up and do some of that stuff from time to time as well. All right, I think that's going to be it for today. I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat, so we're going to call it there. Again, these briefing videos are streamed live to our Discord. If you are a member of the active duty member of the Dauntless crew, you're welcome to join us in the chat in Discord in the screening room. If you are not a member of the crew, you're welcome to join us on YouTube, where we are also streamed live. The video is uploaded to Facebook a little bit later. So if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube or Facebook, you're welcome to drop any questions or comments you might have in the comment thread there, and I will either address it in the comment thread or perhaps we can talk about it in an upcoming video. So we're going to call it there. Thank you, everybody. That's it for today. Swart out.